Objective A is about solving problems using the maths you know. Let's look at how it's assessed and how this changes from MYP 1 through to MYP 5. Then I'll share some tips about how to best prepare. Criterion A is split into 3 key skills. First of all, you need to be able to see the problem and choose the right maths. Let's say, for example, you had the question 3.5 times 2.4. There are many different ways you could approach this question. You might choose to do 3 times 2.4 and then add on half of 2.4. You might choose to change it to 7 times 1.2. You might choose to change them both to 35 times 24 and then divide your answer at the end. You could use long multiplication or the grid method. Any of those approaches would be absolutely fine as long as it was relevant for the question given to you. Once you've chosen your method, you then need to be able to follow the steps in the right way. So if you chose to do the grid method, you need to show that you can fill in the boxes correctly. If you chose to do long multiplication, you need to show that you understand place value. And then finally, you need to be able to solve the problem, so get to the right answer. So if I'd chosen to change them both to 35 times 24, I would need to know to divide my final answer by 100 to get the correct final solution. The assessment itself might look like a test with questions starting from simple problems, so maybe one-step calculations, and then moving on to more complex or challenging problems, which might involve multiple steps or bringing together different concepts. Then at the highest level, there will be unfamiliar questions, which just means applying the skills that you've gotten from the unit into unfamiliar scenarios. So this might link it to prior knowledge, so topics from previous units. It might be a more complex and worded problem. It might need you to work backwards, so given the solution, what's the question? It might look like some competition style questions, which often involve some knowledgeable trial and improvement. Or you might be asked to explain your thinking in a written way to really check your understanding. This format of going from simple to unfamiliar is the same in MYP 1 and all the way through to MYP 5. The complexity comes with the fact that, of course, you'll be looking at more challenging topics as you move through the years. Okay, so in order to work on this criterion and improve your knowledge and understanding, you need to be able to take effective notes. This will not look the same for every single student, and it definitely does not mean writing down everything that happens in the lesson. Your teacher might also have a preference of how they want you to set up your notes, but they must be organised. The whole aim is that you're able to refer back to them if you ever have a question. So a title definitely, so that in case you're flicking through the book, you can quickly find what you're looking for. You might want to highlight definitions and key formula. You might want to have 2 fully laid out examples each lesson. You might choose to have a 1-sentence summary at the end of the lesson to really highlight what you've learnt. And you might choose to keep your practice questions in a separate space so it doesn't get mixed into the key examples and definitions. Asking questions doesn't just mean asking the teacher, am I right? It means asking why certain things are happening to really check your understanding. You might ask, why do I need to line up the decimal points when adding? Why did I need to divide by 100 even though I multiplied both numbers by 10? Why can I double one number and half the other and still get the right answer when multiplying? But why doesn't this work when I add? These deeper questions support real understanding and avoid you just memorizing steps and procedures. This is especially important for those unfamiliar problems, because if you don't understand how or why processes work, you won't know how to pick the right strategy in a new situation. Explain what you've learned. This might look like explaining what you've learned to a peer in the lesson. It might look like that 1-sentence summary where you're explaining to yourself what you've learned. Or it might be that when you go home and someone asks you, how was your day and what did you learn in maths? that you actually explain what you've learnt. This lets you check if you really know what you think you know. And if you stumble in your explanation, that actually guides you in knowing what to ask your teacher next lesson. The process of explaining also helps you with Criterion C, communication, but more on that in a separate video. Having a routine for practice. This might look like having flashcards, so having questions on one side and answers on the other. The questions might have come from the examples in your exercise book or from platforms like Dr. Frost or Khan Academy. A good approach is to practice those questions the evening after you've learnt them. Check the answer on the back. If you get them correct, put them in one pile, incorrect, a different pile. Then the next day, try them again. The next week, the next month, make sure you're checking regularly. And the key is that if you get a question incorrect, you must follow up. Don't just put it on the pile, never to be seen again. Watch a review video, talk to your teacher, look back on your super organised notes, and make sure that you try it again on another day. Connecting with keywords helps you with the select part of the criteria. If you see a question and aren't sure of what the first step is, it's going to be really hard to reach a solution. So an example would be seeing the word median and knowing that you have to put the numbers in order first before doing anything else. Or you might know how to subtract, but if the question mentions finding the profit and you don't realise that that requires you to subtract, then you won't be able to apply what you know. So make sure you get familiar with the keywords for the unit. And in a similar way, get familiar with the formula from the unit. This is for the apply part. So maybe you see the question and you work out which formula is going to be helpful for it. You might get given that formula in the assessment, but if you don't know how to use it, then it's not going to be very helpful. So maybe you're given the acronym BIDMAS and you even know what the letters stand for. But if you don't know that this is telling you the order of operations and you don't realise that D and M are on the same level or A and S are on the same level, then you might still calculate incorrectly. So make sure that you get familiar with your formulas and know how to use them. That is it. Please check out the other videos about criteria B, C and D so that you can get to know what else to expect in MYP Maths.